Hey Emily, how are you doing? Hi guys, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, Sarah. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing good. It feels like forever, but it's only been a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Hey Fred, how are you? I sent you a co-host. Well, welcome back. Thanks for joining us again. I'm sorry about the glitch last time.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. We're just working out some logistical kinks here.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
It's so weird. I'm on my laptop and it's like you have this like spaceship of a laptop that doesn't actually work.
Oh.
Sorry, I guess I'll use this phone thing.
Oh my gosh. That's funny. We could see you and it looked like you're speaking, but I couldn't hear
No, I
anything.
was speaking and it didn't work, so there you go.
Um,
Hi guys.
Hi, welcome back. Thank you for coming back.
So I was just saying, like, I believe you that there was a glitch. I didn't understand what you said, but I trust you that a glitch occurred.
Yeah, yeah. Last week it didn't record, and I managed to get some sort of file, but it's basically won't play from the replay. Like normally you can go to a profile and just click play. So it's just in this weird TS format, and Emily's got it, so she's going to take a look at it, aren't you, Emily?
Yeah, I couldn't open it
Um,
either. So it, you thought everything from spaces stayed in the ether, but not so true.
And maybe Elon's just like no thanks.
I mean, we said
Yeah.
so much good stuff on the interview that maybe he just like snagged it for his personal collection. I don't know.
Just like no thank you. I'm just like, got you.
oh my God.
Well, today my voice is scratchier because I've lost it for the last week, so I'm just getting it back.
Are you feeling better? Because I know you were quite.
I think I'm like approaching 90%. I'd say yesterday I was at 80%, but I got pretty blindsided by this. It was like, I think the sort of running joke I have, if there was ever like a open mic night for dads to try to be comedians, my main joke would be like, one of the big surprises you discover in life as an aging man and father is that nobody fucking cares when you get sick. No, nobody
Oh,
cares. Nobody cares. It doesn't matter. It doesn't stop anything. That sort of normal thing of like, I'm just gonna go get better. Like, nope, that doesn't happen. You just keep going.
wow, that's tough.
Well, there seems to be a sentiment of yeah, there's not a lot of sympathy.
Actually, I'll say there's sympathy. Like people will say things. I'm just saying, like the act of like, and
It
then
doesn't
now I
change it.
get to take a day off and not have to like do stuff. Like, nope, that doesn't. Yeah,
Yeah, you expect it to be like a robot and just continue.
yeah.
Like,
Anyway, we can talk about robots. It's fine.
yes. Well, the first question I have is basically, I want to know how the event went last week, and it's not a very sort of historical question, but I know it was. What was it 2 weeks
I mean,
ago? You had the.
I got to say, just like which events, it's been a bit of a mad dash in Machine Cinema Land here in Los Angeles for the last week.
Oh.
We did do the Dome event that I know Emily graciously got to introduce her human self into, um, and uh, and then we did an event with CapCut last night, which was really cool, which was a very fun little experiment too, and we had
I want to hear about
yeah,
that
so
too.
no, we've had a good little sprint of experiments in the last couple weeks, and we're kind of great, thankfully going to wind down for a minute. But there's already like some really cool ideas bubbling, cool partnerships bubbling for the new year. So it's all very lucky to call it a thing to be busy doing.
That's amazing. Yeah, I saw the event list and I was like, wow, it's like nearly something every night. So that was really amazing.
So yeah, you tell me what's a fun way to kick things off?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Emily, do you want to know about the CapCut event, or should we go back to the Dome event because that sounded amazing?
I mean, Emily, do
I
you want to describe the?
definitely want to talk about
You,
both. I definitely want to talk about both. But let's start with the dome event since I was there, and then
well, what
maybe
did you
we can maybe
experience?
our weight separate. Well, I was really encouraged because what I saw is that you can get AI up on a dome, and you can also get it up on a big, double walled screen and the floor. So doing, it doesn't look like the sphere yet, obviously, but doing like an art house event or doing kind of like some experimental stuff, and it's just going to get better and better. So I was very encouraged and excited that we're already where we are. And, in an afternoon, I was with a team of 4 other people, and we were able to get something that was ready to put up that evening. So that was really encouraging. And I was excited about the medium because I think that's the future. We've done one screen, now it's time to do four.
Well, I mean, I think it's been really cool. So I'll just try to describe it. I know we may or may not have people that have context of from when we spoke about it last time. So, hey friends, I'm Fred, and I'm co-founder at Machine Cinema, and my co-founder Mindo is much more active on Twitter and or X, and you should follow him, Min's Mind. Um, and we have this community that we started in Los Angeles and has now really grown well beyond Los Angeles. But I've remained in Los Angeles while Min has taken his Johnny Appleseed uniform and been spreading AI seeds all over the world in these forums of Gen Jams, where what Emily's describing is when we more traditionally just get a bunch of curious creatives, usually, sometimes technologists, sometimes legacy media people, and we introduce kind of like often an education moment with some type of tutorial, but always with some type of creative challenge that we can use kind of this sort of ongoingly shipping set of tools of everything from VO3 on the Google side to Kling and World Labs in their Marble tool. There's just so many things that even the last 2 months have come out. Nano Banana Pro is everybody's really going nuts on. But anyway, we come up with like, well, what's a thing we can do today, which I think is for new users often like its own, like, what am I supposed to do with all these? So we kind of create a bit of a workflow sequence. So whether it's the old school stuff is we make music videos, or we make little quick commercial spots, or we make like little short films or trailers for movies that don't exist yet and stuff like that. Those are kind of the tried and true things that we often do. They usually take about 4 hours, and we get people to come together in small groups and kind of make friends, which is tricky for adults. They don't remember having to do that in high school or even elementary school, of just meeting strangers and being competent enough to talk to them. It happens as a new thing for some adults. But we get them to do that, and then they make a little film and a little short. And obviously the lawnmower decided to come by today. I hope you guys aren't hearing that. I'm hoping my phone mic is meeting that out. But
Yeah, that's fine.
okay.
Don't worry.
So on occasion we take that format into an experimental stage, and the what Emily is bringing up is 2 Saturdays ago. I've been working with this location here in Los Angeles called the Creative Technology Center. It's an amazing human being called Don Schneider that somewhere along the line really took a bet on creating like an XR playground that does all kinds of other stuff. They have these things called loud movie events there that my friend Andy Cochran hosts, that they're like these weird, like, kind of like disco parties. If you can imagine, and Emily, maybe you can help me if I'm not doing a good job, but it's a space that it's like a bit of like an industrial kind of roll up door that you walk into. And then there's, when you first walk in, you're greeted by this geodesic dome that you can imagine what that looks like, except the inside is projection, and the floor is like a shag rug, and like pillows and like sort of bean bags. And from what I understand, they do all kinds of groovy stuff in there that you can probably imagine what goes on in Los Angeles and California these days. But they do a lot of wellness. Let's put it that way. But the other room is this big, kind of maybe 2 to 3 story set of wraparound walls that have projection mapping on them, with this really kind of sophisticated system of projectors, and then an LED floor, that lights up. So what we were able to do is, again, take this Gen Jam spirit of like, all right, what can we do here? And in the span of about 4 to 5 hours, and Emily, you stuck it out with us pretty far, is how do we create two things? We had one group of people that went into the dome, and had a really fun time just sitting there in the dome with like the groovy music that plays in there for you, with this kind of hack that we discovered a few months ago. And that's what really pushed me to come up with this dome opportunity, which is if you use VO3, the Google tool, at VO3.1 now, and I found this on socials. I'm not some kind of genius that figures these things out, but this guy called Henry Dobre, who's a really awesome AI creator. He's got a following on X as well, and LinkedIn. He's an incredibly generous AI filmmaker, and definitely in the category of what I think is very much what machine cinema taps into, is that there's a lot of sharing going on right now, and this sort of early wave of AI creativity, that every and then just like great filmmakers who are dug in and are hopefully making good money, and they don't have to worry about why they're sharing so much, is because it's part of their process. Is like, hey, I discovered this and check it out. So he had discovered that if you use these 3 prompt terms in VO3, equirectangular, monoscopic video, and I think like 360-degree video. If you put those prompt words inside your prompt that you use when you're using VO3, it'll give you that stretched video that will play in a VR headset and that will play in a dome. And that was like the big, like, ta-da, let's fucking go. Like, that's such a cool idea to be able to do that. So I've been just trying to engineer this moment, and it finally happened 2 Saturdays ago, where we were able to team up with Don and CTC. So probably about maybe 10 or so of us just hunkered down with their VO3 accounts, which if you have like the Ultra accounts, you know, you have like unlimited fast credits. And even just like a regular Pro account, I think there's a lot of generation in there that you can do this stuff. But anyway, so you could do this at home in your headsets, and like if you know how to sideload your Oculus, you know, Quest 3, like you can do this for yourself. But we had this amazing dome room to do it in, and it was just so cool. And I think just so that's just me offering context for people that can try to visualize that. But the thing that was so cool, as I talked to more people like Emily who were there, because it was something that was so hard to pitch people. I kept telling people for the last 6 months, like, I really want to do this dome. Like, nobody really understood. And then finally, people, first of all, got to jump into that space and see how cool it was, and also get to use it. And I'm just hearing people's reactions. It just really is. And I don't like to sort of like throw this Kool-Aid around, because it's almost trite these days, but this whole like democratization of creativity meme, which I'm not trying to undermine it. I'm just saying a lot of people just say it, and it's true enough. But this was another moment where I just saw it happen. Like who goes to the Sphere in Vegas and imagines themselves like, I want to take a crack at this, and then can? You know, who goes to Cosm here in Los Angeles, that if you haven't been, is incredible, and it's by no means like a stepchild to the Sphere. It's its own awesome thing, but it's another dome type projection experience, and then even has the ability to just, I'm going to take a crack at it, much less I'm just going to take a crack at it in the next few hours and just make something. And just to see people go through that cycle of not just doing it, and isn't that kind of cool and nifty that this technology, that also means that in that one room, like 10 new people just got added to like the I want to think this way box, that they can even contribute to that. And we might even imagine a world where these things become experiences that happen on repeat. So again, I don't know if we're going to figure all of that out, but it was just so cool to see a creator be like, oh my God, I can get to do this. And what would I do with this? And some people made like kind of groovy psychedelic movies and kind of like trippy, like, you know, one shot kind of traveling through space and time wormhole type stuff. And all that's fantastic. But then like one of our creators, who again, this also hits the meme that, to me, what's most exciting about this technology is just seeing, you know, really creative people take this on. Not just that idea that anybody is suddenly just as creative as Steven Spielberg. It's just that, no, there's a lot of really creative people. And what do they do with these things when they get over the taboos or the humps of this space? And, you know, one of our community members is this guy, Michael Ronan, who's a super interesting guy, and he's got its own like immersive content sort of background. He's been doing a lot of stuff in the space. But so while everybody was making all these like groovy wormhole movies, he pulled out like an Insta 360, which is like a kind of like a 360 camera, you know, just like a regular way to make, you know, dome footage. And he went and kind of spoke to it like he was like a daddy talking to baby. So it's like he's got like way up into the camera. He's like, okay, welcome to this world, blah, blah, blah. And then he then went to generate a whole bunch of VO3 videos of like people from all over the world, like talking to their baby in their crib as it's growing up, all these like POV shots of a baby. And then it kept going into like POVs of like animal babies, like elephant babies, like giraffe babies, bird babies in the nest. And it was so creative. And he just like made that because he's just thinking about it. And he had this like laptop and he had this dome to execute it on. So anyway, to me, that was a real special moment to see it. And then in the other room, we got to do some really cool stuff too, where similarly, we had that projection wall and then that floor as ways to think kind of what I want to say is like beyond the rectangle. Like we were not just like linearly making a movie for a regular rectangle. It's almost like, how do you create an experience where you're generating for the floor, you're generating for the left wall, you're generating for the right wall. We didn't even go as far down as I wanted to, but you can also create multiple panels. Like you could create like 7 panels that all talk to each other in that type of setting. So I just think that's where that XR space has already been laying the groundwork for like experience content. And for so long, it's been so inaccessible to the average creator that maybe hasn't found a career path in that direction, or it's actually just really expensive to rent out these spaces and really get to play in them. But because of this amazing partnership that CTC gave us for just a one-off, and we hope to do more with them, we got to sort of find out, oh, this really can work like this. You really can just bring creativity in this fluid state and move this quickly, iterate this quickly, and try stuff. And I just think that invites so much new ways of thinking and opportunity.
It does. That sounds amazing. And it was like really interesting to hear you talk about it before the event and then afterwards to see what came out of it. Because I know you'd mentioned you wanted to try a lot of different things. And it sounds like everybody collaborated really well and brought some unique visuals to the space.
Yeah, I mean, it was exhausting, but I'm really excited about it.
So will you be doing the event again?
Yeah,
Or?
no, we're meant to do a debrief with the location guy. He seemed very pleased, and I mean that type of place normally is a very high location fee. So I think we're just trying to figure out, how do we sort of mutually incentivize, and I don't know if we can find other spaces too. But that space is really special, and I hope we get to work with them again.
Well, congratulations. I'm really happy it turns out well. And how about the CapCut event? How did that go? Because that's sort of like CapCut is one of my favorite editing programs. It's really weird because it's like I use it all the time. But I think people are starting to now see it as more like AI based because originally it was just an editing program, wasn't it?
Yeah, and actually, I see that Laura Tornga is also in here. I'm not going to suddenly call her out, but she's listening. She was my co-pilot last night. You're welcome to bring her up if you want to hear from her as well. But we were so I have a relationship via a previous event, and also just she's a co-member at this place called the Lighthouse here in Los Angeles. This woman Bia Granja, who's this incredible like force of nature, just like badass, awesome person, a Brazilian. I happen to be Brazilian, so I just vibe with her on that. But she does a lot of work in creator economy, like a lot of South American work originally, but she's brought a lot of that now. She's living in LA. And she had a relationship with this other amazing woman, Anna Lay, who works at CapCut. And I don't know the full genesis of what their intentions were. I probably missed that in a memo, but they wanted to do an event. And we were very lucky to be on their minds of what's a special way for them to kind of connect with the creator community here in LA. And they added like a panel. There's like the kind of usual moving parts of a good kind of a technology event. And they asked us to do a Gen Jam for them. And it was also another puzzle. It was another example of something that needed to adapt to its environment. They had like a 4-hour window, but we were only going to have maybe 2 hours for a jam. And they also wanted it to be this exquisite corpse model of a jam. If you have ever heard the term, it's sort of when like multiple people are all making one thing, rather than even what I described in the Dome event, like where a lot of people just kind of made their own like one-off films. Laura was a part of that too at the Dome. She made a beautiful film as well in the Dome. But so this was a different challenge of like, how do we all make one thing? And on top of that, they're like, when we want one thing that looks like this, they had a lot of interesting criteria. And I'm like, all right, okay, check. This sounds harder by the minute. But they wanted to do like a film that everything built up to like something at the end that was like end of year themed, like holiday season themed or something. So we came up with this idea of creating sort of this a format where we would pre-produce a final scene. And then that's something that Laura and I worked on together, generating and putting together, of like a party on the moon, right? So imagine like a disco party on the moon, with as interesting and bizarre as that can sound. The key is we wanted people at the event to make little films of the people going to that party, right? So we came up with this format that in our video, we had like the 8 guests that had already made it to the party and they were dancing. And we came up with all these silly examples that were actually a really interesting test. So we did like Napoleon, we did like some weird deep sea diver, We did like a cyberpunk geisha that Laura came up with. We did this weird female vampire. We had all these like eight funny characters. I had this like 80s hair rocker, like metal kind of glam rock guy. And so we just created these characters. We pre-created them. Then we created character references, and meaning we just had like a full like body shot and some additional content. Then, and if you've used Nano Banana Pro or now the C Dream tool or even ChatGPT 1.5 images that just came out, all of these are different types of almost like world model based image editors. It's probably butchering the way the devs would call it, but the point is that you're not just like photoshopping a face and reimagining around it in some like in painting approach. Like it understands the physics and the three-dimensionality of somebody's face if you give it a good reference file. So I mean, we could talk more about how that works, but the point is we created 8 folders with 8 characters that then at the event, we broke everybody up into teams, like we've said before, and those teams had access to these folders, and they're like, all right, you need to make a 15-second video of how Napoleon went from the battlefield to this moon, right? How did this cyberpunk geisha finish up whatever she was doing and get to the party? How did this 80s hair rocker guy finish up whatever he was doing and get to the party? So everybody just had to make like a little 15-second kind of transition world building exercise. So we basically threw that out. I mean, people had maybe an hour. I mean, it was a true sprint. And we were there to kind of talk about the CapCut tool. So CapCut, it shows up on your phone as a mobile app. It's a web app, but we were actually really focusing on the downloadable CapCut on your desktop, which is a pretty kind of futuristic way to see where everything's headed, because obviously it's an editing tool, the way like Premiere or Resolve are an editing tool. But they have gone ahead and obviously outside of CapCut, ByteDance has Dramina, and they have the C-Dance video model, the C-Dream image model, OmniHuman, like the lip sync model. So all of these things are all starting to talk to each other in these big companies. So the latest iteration of CapCut as a downloadable editing tool has AI generation inside of it. So it has this kind of workflow that's novel, and I've never seen anything like it, and it's interesting work in progress. But that you have your ability to edit your film like you're used to, but you have your ability to edit with access to multiple models. So you have pull down image, pull down video model for all the major models like VO3, Sora, but also their own C-Dance and C-Dream. So anyway, you have access to all the things that most good like FreePic and Crea or Weavy, like it's the same business of aggregating models, but inside of an editor. So we were there to kind of tutorial that and showcase that a little bit and create. We use this like Get to the Moon challenge. So in about an hour, everybody made all these like funny little videos. I had like this space alien character that they sort of had him like sort of transform into a spaceship and then walk out of his own spaceship. I mean, some really radical stuff. People had a lot of fun with it. And then at the end, we quickly just slapped all those. Slapped, maybe not slap is the wrong word, but we like kind of slapped all those like 15-second videos together, set against some music that we had pre-generated during the week. Laura made this really awesome kind of like dance song that played during the actual party scene that we already edited. But I'd found this funny Suno prompt of doing like a holiday anthem, like a Frank Sinatra style song. But every time it gave me lyrics, it was annoying because it was talking about like snowflakes and holiday trees and all this stuff that I'm like, who cares? Like, we're not going to see any of those things when we're looking at like geishas and aliens. So I just told it, like, just give me gibberish. And then it was amazing. Like, they gave me all these like totally stupid songs that sounds like a classic, like Dean Martin, Andy Williams, like Christmas song, but just talking about complete and total nonsense. And so we use those songs as the music that we cut these funny little vignettes to, and then it pays off with this big party on the moon. And then we kind of watched like the extras, like there were some like extra teams that didn't make it to the final cut. But yeah, that's what we did last night, and it was another experiment under the belt. We made it through it.
That sounds actually amazing and really quite complicated, especially for an hour's generation time. But it sounds like it turned out really well.
Yeah, we've done a few of these, and it's interesting. I don't know if I'll ever make any money doing this, but I think I'm becoming an expert in this strange thing of like a live production that is over and probably disposable when it's all over. But like it's actually producing. Like it's a lot of producing because you have to create like a workflow and a structure and a thing that everything slots into. And you're definitely under the gun time wise, and it's an interesting. I don't know what I'll do with this skill, but I've done it a few times now, and it's fun.
Yeah, definitely, it is a skill. I mean, it's keeping everyone on time, is hard, especially when it's like teams of people and everything. That's definitely hard. So in terms of CapCut, what were they like? What do they like? What do you guys do with the product, with the film now? Does it go online somewhere?
Yeah, no, I need to polish it, and Laura's helping me with that too, with some notes. But yeah, I just need to send it over, and they're going to post it at some point. So we'll make sure people see it.
That's amazing. So yeah, basically, we did the interview with Fred last week, everybody, and we thought it had vanished, but I've managed to find it. So, today we're just going to probably talk about going forward and future stuff, so we don't duplicate what we've already talked about. But that being said, Fred, how is your 2026 looking?
I mean, we're Min and I have been, and our team have been kind of using this alleged slowdown period, because it's not slowing down in this last week, but we're trying to use this period to kind of really take in kind of what's really happened in the last 2 years. We've just been kind of taking stock on just how much our first year was just about kind of starting to discover what was happening. And like I said, Min really took the ball and ran far and wide with it on how much interest we were able to find globally. So that's what this last year has really been. We went from doing about, I think we did originally about 17 events in 2024, mostly in LA and a little bit in San Francisco. I don't remember when the first New York one was, but it was probably right after that. And then, in the span of this last year, we've probably done about another 130. So it's quite incredible, and I really tip my hat to Min on just how much he's devoted so much of his time and energy to taking this far and wide. And we've been really minding the keep here in LA, and I think some percentage of that 130, a high percentage of that is in LA, and we're proud of that. But I think just sort of seeing that groundswell we've created. I think we, depending on which metric we use, we have about 20,000 people that we're interacting with our newsletters and our invite lists, and so we have a footprint. There's ideas of how this connects with opportunities. I think I'm personally, and I always just raise my hand for this just subject area, I'm really, really keen on jobs and people advancing careers. And we have a jobs board in our WhatsApp that is probably our quickest growing and most active. And I think there's a lot of room to build on that in terms of creating more value back for our community and making it more dynamic. And I kind of built is that like FUBU, for us, by us kind of energy that I think we have an opportunity to contribute there, because we kind of interact with that job market really literally. I think advocacy is always a space that comes up. We all saw that CCAI kind of group that announced themselves this week. That's, it's his own subject area. But I think just that type of energy of how do we, I don't know if we're here to represent anything. I think Min, sometimes we go back and forth on it's not where we stand, but what's our real position. I think, but advocacy, you can't deny that. I think as a collective, we have a real opportunity to listen and sort of and communicate. So I think that's an ongoing journey. I think we love when we get to be invited to like university spaces, and we did 2 digital Gen Jams this year with the TV Academy, thanks to Joanna Popper, is a really kind of incredible member of our community. So that type of really connecting people with where they are, and I think really activating what we think is unique to our format of just curiosity, empathy, agnosticism, sort of inclusivity. I think just creating that space that I don't think anybody's being shilled, is how I put it. I don't think anybody needs to feel like they're being sold something, but they're being introduced at the very least. And obviously, when you look at communities like ours in LA, we then grow with it and we do stuff with it. I see people like Brogan on this call right now. I mean, incredible to watch his career and his creativity just grow. And I don't know if I wouldn't assume we're taking any credit for it, but I just mean we're creating a space that we just get to watch that and experience with it and partner with it. And I think that's where I think we're getting well beyond the introduction phase and just really being a part of growth for individuals and sometimes groups. So I think that's just like spiritually stuff that matters to us. But specifically, I think there's a feeling to do more premium, kind of higher ticket events that are more ambitious. I think we're in a position to take on that type of sponsorship support and partnership support as people get excited about what we're doing, whether they're there to bring us a space or bring us talent or opportunities to sort of do really unique experiments. That's sort of a very natural extension of what we're already doing. I think there's sort of as we think about the education space, I mean, we've got a lot of great, sort of allies and friends that are there. A lot of people are educating, but I think where we can look at our format of the Gen Jam and even like the little bit of technology that we built around it that we're growing, I think there's a real opportunity to also lean into that as an opportunity for us. So there's a lot of things that we're just trying to really observe and grow with, and really look back at our community and really listen to them. We had a great kind of end of year town hall called yesterday, and it was just we took a break from interviewing people and just like hearing where people are. And there's just a lot of patterns of really taking advantage of this membership, and how do we sort of reward and grow with people that have been really with us. And so there's a lot of things floating around, but the next year I think stands to be a real pivot. We like to think of them as seasons, like we're in season 3 of Breaking Bad, but nobody's going to sell any drugs or kill anybody. But it's like it's we like to almost imagine that narrative of what we're doing.
Definitely. I mean, I have to say, I think everybody that I've met in the space and on the WhatsApp, and you guys, you're all such nice people, and everybody shares knowledge and information. I think that's one of the great things that I don't see in Hollywood in general, but in this space and, machine cinema, everybody is so awesome. So I think it's really fantastic.
Yeah, Fred, I was sort of curious if you could comment a little bit more on the community. I think I can echo what Sarah is saying, is like you guys have kind of attracted and created an environment where people can really get to know each other. And I've been to 2 of your events and I saw several people that I knew already. I mean, that's really unusual. So I don't know if you have any vision for how that wants to grow, or kind of what you've seen in the energy that's around you. Is it because of the medium? Is it something intentionally you guys created? So
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of people, even from our season 1, as we like to say, that we don't get to see as often because they've all gotten very busy being very successful. But I don't think that means they're no longer with us. I just think that we get to see them as often as we'd like. So I do think there's one, I don't know, interesting feature to this model that, as we do our job successfully, we don't get to see our community sometimes as often as we'd like. I do think there's a increasing interest in sort of what's possible with the knowledge base and the expertise and the curiosity that I think our real like active members are. So I think that's where that notion of membership and really thinking about doing something with that and really building leadership, as much as people step up. I mean, I don't know if I'd ever put this on a t-shirt, but I really think there's like step up and show up as like the 2 things that work. I think for a lot of people that are in career transition mode, I think especially people that got very used to just going into an office every day and having a job or having regular contract work on set or something, like these types of communities just create a great thing just to show up to. And I really think that's probably been like the easiest muscle to flex for so many people that I see have gotten so much out of being with us, is just showing up. And I think it's such an easy thing to just get that little bit of motivation. It's easier than having to go to the gym probably. But I think then stepping up, and I think it's been really interesting to see. There's the people that are, I don't know, and I don't have any problem with the lurkers in the WhatsApp group or the more passive consumers, but there's some people that just say, what can I do? How can I help? And I really think some of those people have gotten the most out of this. And maybe they were available for it, which is, I'm not, harping on people that haven't done that. So I think that's sort of what I think is where we're just always listening to what's happening in the community and interacting with it. But we want to then hear back about how do we keep growing it. So I don't know, I'm kind of rambling on it because my most kind of curious position is how do we sort of grow with ideas that are going to start coming up from within,
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's an evolution for sure. But I do think what you mentioned about like events, sort of learning events that people pay for is a good idea, because you learn so much from the events. Like I came to the virtual one, and it's such a steep learning curve, that I think it's beneficial to anyone who's not been in the AI space and who wants to learn how to make projects.
Yeah, I think there's going to be something interesting that might start informing what hubs do. By that, I mean, like, what does New York do or what does LA do? I know that here in LA, it seems to be kind of the whistles are blowing that a lot of people are like, oh, I guess we're okay, we're allowed to do this stuff. And I think there's still some more big kind of like flags to wave of, whether it's copyright or, a lot of things that are still lingering. But I'm definitely seeing not sort of obscure independent companies jumping in. Like, let's say things like Amazon, and it seems to, I don't even know if it's an open secret. It's just like an objective fact that Netflix is into this stuff. So I just think like the idea that a town like this has as big a workforce as it has that can sit around and worry about being replaced, and maybe those are things that aren't irrelevant. I'm not trying to brush over the way that these things affect people, but there actually are growth opportunities that the main bridge to cross is educating yourself and figuring out where do you fit in. And I'm not saying it's all like roses and perfect, but there are opportunities growing. And I think that that's going to be a story for the next year of like how a place like LA has a lot of people that the opportunity is that there's all kinds of new creators coming in. There's all kinds of new voices. All the democratization stuff is happening. But I think there's also available creative professionals that need to be brought into a continuing education environment. And I sense that's coming. I'm hearing that buzzing from a lot of like sort of high level studio places. And it would be great to think that we could be a solution to that as well.
Definitely. I mean, the studios need people. I mean, they're sort of a bit behind in terms of everything. Do you want to talk a bit more about Netflix, or is it more of a sort of like?
Oh, I don't know anything. I don't work there. I'm just saying, like, it just seems like I keep hearing about people working there. I keep hearing about, we see movies and Netflix studios productions that are using this stuff, like, and not to begrudge them. I think, like most major entities, they kind of say one thing and do another because of the politics surrounding this stuff. But it seems, and again, I don't know if this is a good pattern, but, they did this already with how they treated being a streamer, is they have the ability to behave as a studio, not just a distributor. And I think as a studio, like they can take a lot of this stuff in-house versus expecting production companies to do it for them. And I don't know if that's a great macro trend. I'm just saying it's definitely a market signal that major entities are taking this seriously.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So I had a question here. If Machine Cinema is available worldwide or just in the US, but I think you guys are
I don't know.
worldwide,
We're
aren't you?
worldwide. I mean, that's the thing I just want to remind everybody. Min is the much bigger celebrity on this topic. He is single-handedly taken his own life and turned it into a perpetual, sort of sharing experience with so many people. He's been to, I don't know, dozens of countries in the span of the last 12 months. He was at one point we were zooming from Azerbaijan. He's about to continue into a wave into Asia. No, I think the global piece is actually, to his credit, a big unique feature that I think really can point to a whole other chapter that I really I'd ask you to invite him to speak to his vision on. Again, I feel very personally close to the LA experience. I'm connected to that broader vision, but I can speak a lot more authoritatively, I think, about what I think is possible here locally.
Yeah, actually, we talked to him and we interviewed him earlier this year, and he was in some country. I mean, Emily, I'm not sure if you remember which one. But
I don't think he knew either. He was traveling so much.
But yeah, he came on and he gave it a great talk about everything that was going on. So you guys will make a good team with this. So if people want to get involved, how should they contact you? What's the best way?
I mean, it's a pretty active WhatsApp group. I think some people maybe aren't used to that kind of fire hose of conversation, but it's certainly an easy place just to sort of join the conversation. And I'd say there's a lot of people that I think that's probably another thing I'm noticing is that there's a lot of different user experiences to Machine Cinema. There's some people that are all about being at the events. There's some people that have never ever seen it at an event, and they actually are highly vocal in the WhatsApp group because they to them the utility is the conversation. And sometimes they're kind of career professionals that this just becomes their ability to skip having to read stuff in the news and just be engaging with conversations that I think happen daily. Like, when like the Disney kind of open AI announcement was like, that was just like bat signal up, Machine Cinema, let's go. Like, it was just like everybody couldn't stop talking. And I was like, I'll even confess, I'm not that active compared to a lot of people in there. I chime in and I share news that I'm interested in. I'm not as sort of like internet chatty as someone like Min. Like Min is incredible at stoking dialogue and stoking provocative conversations. So, but that's sort of what then happens in there. So I'd say that's an amazing entry point for some people that are just curious and I think feel like they want to get past like reading some Substack once a week. We're all on LinkedIn. I mean, I actually I like how boring LinkedIn is. It kind of gives me a break from all the fun vibes of all these other socials. So to me, when I get reached out to on LinkedIn, I sort of assume this is a more serious, like, how can we work together conversation.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't think we're hard to reach if people have ideas. Certainly, we're always interested in partnerships. Certainly, if so, I mean, I'd say what we're increasingly having trouble keeping up with is people that are like, "Hey, can you throw a party over here?" Well, do you have a budget? Is there
Yeah.
funding? At some point, there's only so many hours in the day. So I think things that
Hmm.
obviously get prioritized are things that are kind of, sponsored events where there's like real, sort of a little some business for us, but also when people sort of truly partner with us and they're like, hey, we have a location, we're sorted. We actually sometimes they even have their own community to invite. So when
Hmm.
we do a TV Academy Gen Jam, we don't have to promote that. We don't have to go and do all the work that nobody notices of like just wrangling people to show up and communicating to them. Like when we have then that's interesting for us, is because then we just kind of show up and host an event. I mean, even then, I think we're always still looking at an ROI because we're fielding a lot of interest. But we love partnerships and we love ambitious ones. We love experimental ones. We love thinking about how we can take things to new communities. We're having a conversation I think later today with a group that is amazingly called WITH, the Women in Technology Hollywood. That a member came to an event and said, "Hey, I want to do one of these," and she has a great group, a whole community of folks that show up, and so we don't have to really stress out, the invite process. Hopefully, they might even have cations, and that's going to be a great partnership. But that's also a great group for us. That's like a great, whether it's thinking with an advocate hat or just thinking about how do we reach people that have greater impact when we really super serve them. So that's a great instinct for us. We're also talking to a sort of a for-profit group that does a whole bunch of kind of like I don't even know how to describe what they do, but they do like animal rescue meets like corporate responsibility with pets or something. Like they
Oh,
do.
wow.
So we might do like a pet jam with them, and that just sounds fun, to sort of do an event where there's dogs everywhere. So there's still a fun experience. But again, these are all things that have upside for us, and we sort of really sort of factor it through. Like, what do we get out of it? But that's the events business. Again, I think where we have other ways that sometimes they emerge just organically of meeting groups and people where they are, and then how do we partner up in ways even beyond the in-person events. That's all interesting for us.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I know you guys have an X account and I think a Discord too. You have Discord as well?
It's
So
it's there. It needs more love, and it's a place that if we reach our goals of having 100,000 people by the end of this year, it's because we've moved to Discord, because we've officially broken WhatsApp. There's
yeah.
not enough space on there.
So if anyone has any questions, you can just raise your hand, and I can bring you up to speak. But in terms of WhatsApp, how does that work? You can have like how many people maximum on the group?
I think because if you're a WhatsApp expert, um, there's just a group chat that you can create, and most people will never worry about hitting the ceiling. Then there's this notion of building a community. So there's like a community setting inside of WhatsApp that then you can have several subgroups underneath. And I think that community has a cap at like 2,500. So when I say 10,000, 20,000, it's because we measure them against our Substack, when we measure that against our invite list, because those are other measurements of where people are with us. But again, we're in this sort of like annoying metric of WhatsApp because it is one of our favorite places to convene. But then the totality of a WhatsApp community is 2,500 people. So we have to reach people in all these other ways.
Yeah, definitely. Um, what are your predictions for next year going forward in terms of AI in the space? I know it's quite hard to
Yeah,
predict.
I mean, it seems like the Hollywood narrative is shifting from sort of taboo to distrust to sort of engagement. I don't know. The CCAI thing is great. I'm almost curious what everybody else here thinks, because it's hard not to notice that a lot of the people in that gathering at least have, in spite of some of the things they're saying, that we get that it's here and things like that. They're absolutely people that have been super suspicious and very there's a lot of friction with momentum that perhaps deserves friction. I'm not even here to judge their mission, but I think they're definitely not like let's go kind of energy. Like there's certainly like some interest that they're protecting. But I do think that shows that everybody is really getting that it's here. I think the Bob Iger Disney moment has qualifications on what it really means. It's mostly UGC and social media and this idea of like content that might show up on Disney Plus, but it's certainly a major player saying we're not just shutting the door on these conversations. So I think it's hard not to think that this time next year there's a, you know, the Academy Awards are officially accepting films with AI in them. The music industry is, you know, and I think I sense there's sort of like this sort of like pendulum swing of backlashes that come, you know, and I like to listen to the backlash because those are our consumers ultimately, and ideally the kind of people that often really care about creativity, and I want to know what they think about this stuff. I do think sometimes they're certainly listening to different cable news as you know, to borrow the metaphor than some other people are. But you know, I think there's going to be a cultural kind of growth and expansion. So it's hard not to notice that. Just on a technology side, like I love this 3D world phase that we're entering. I think tools like Genie 3, the World Labs tool, you know, I think even just the whole notion of a world model is kind of cooked into what, you know, these tools like Nano Banana Pro and what Runway is dropping. So there's a much different, you know, three-dimensionality to storytelling and sort of experience creation that's coming that I think is to me the biggest slipstream of where we have not been yet. I think everybody's been producing for little rectangles on phones, bigger rectangles on their living room screens, and bigger rectangles in movie theaters. The idea that we're now at least at a previs and creation stage operating inside of Unreal Engine more or places like that, I think that just invites a very new set of experiments that we'll see which ones are profitable. But it's hard not to imagine that when you see the amounts of money that are pouring into those parts of those businesses, that it's going to yield something, whether it's pushing into gaming or at least experience content.
Yeah, definitely. I was reading about the data centers in Saudi Arabia, I think, with Luma, and you know, all of this is going to take a lot of power and energy. But yeah, definitely, there's going to be a push into gaming as well, I would think, with all of that.
Yeah, that seems to be like one of the most just low hanging kind of sort of other massive industries that there's also friction to. You know, there's also people that are you know, sort of raising familiar flags against it. Um, but again, I just think we're in such a big stage of discovery on all this stuff, and there's immediate applications where people are finding work in advertising or music videos or making music. So it's interesting to see which things are at least starting to sort of self-sustain, but it's hard to draw like total conclusions right now, and it's fun to play these speculation games, but like in general, if anybody claims to tell you they've got it all figured out, they're usually like lying. It's because we're subject to whatever crazy bit of technology comes out tomorrow, and all of a sudden there's speculation shift. So I think it's surrender to the whitewater rapids that we are in, and try to enjoy them, or hang out on the shore and let somebody else figure it out. I think that's sort of what I see people finding a way to choose. You know?
Yeah, definitely. Hi, Tom. How are you? Did you have a question for Fred?
Yeah, well, not so specifically. Hi, everyone. A question, just because you mentioned the thing, you know, with the AI requiring a lot of power. I don't know what to make of this. I mean, this has been publicized yesterday. This collaboration deal between Trump Media and what's it called, TAE Technology, and they're claiming to be close to or in the process of making fusion happen. You know, and that way to address the increased energy demand that all this technology is going to have. They raised like $6 billion, and so that's something to keep in mind, because, you know, with AI, you know, spiraling into these astronomical levels of energy consumption, you know, it's a factor. And you know, do you guys know anything about that?
Yeah, I don't work in the energy industry. I don't know anything about it.
Right. I mean, but you know, it does affect it. And I mean, just generally on the AI topic, I mean, I do different things. I do video editing, but I also do anagram art. And you know, stuff I've heard often, oh, AI can do that, or is that AI? And I actually tested one of my you know, my most elaborate anagram on Grok in expert mode, and then after 9 minutes it said it can't do it. And but it's it's probably going to get there at some point, but at this point, I'm still looking for an artist agent to represent me, which I can't really manage to do. But if anybody knows an artist agent or somebody good at selling, then look at the link to my other account pinned in my profile. It's all explained. But no, I mean, this stuff with the energy, I mean, I read somewhere that already back in 2021 or 22, all this, including all this crypto and stuff, has already taken like 2% of the world's energy, and it's just going to keep growing. And unless there's some kind of other way to generate all that extra electricity, it's going to be challenging to make it all happen. But yeah, interesting conversation. Enjoyed listening to it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know anything about energy, but I do know there's there's going to have to be something done with all of that.
I can just comment. I mean, sort of Hollywood we're talking a lot about Hollywood, and AI was this unpredictable thing that's coming and sort of changing things. I think energy will probably have its own shift, and people will come up with new innovations and technology that will solve a lot of the new problems that we're starting to have.
Yeah, I genuinely know absolutely nothing about the right way to think about this. I do think most of the time when I see these topics brought up, they're often, there's a bit of a shifting context of the point being made on either side of the conversation. You might argue that a Hollywood film set that has to travel hundreds of people to the desert on airplanes and set up a bunch of honey wagons running on air conditioning and somehow like shipping in a bunch of food for craft services, like I don't know who thinks that's the most efficient use of energy, but we all think it's worth it because a lot of people got to work, and it's this beautiful thing that we call movies in Hollywood. And maybe all of those things are true. I'm just saying like that's rarely inside of the equation, and often the extreme energy consumption isn't just the act of making a video. It's all the other uses of AI that are being used well outside of the creative industry. So I just think it's not real, and I certainly have no solution to it. I also think most people don't realize how many of their mutual funds are invested in fossil fuels, and they don't pay attention to that either. I just think this stuff always begs a lot of context and very sober conversations of like societal values. And somebody might tell you, and it might be Sam Altman, that all of this is worth it because he's on his way to cure cancer, and that's what he thinks, right? He thinks this is all part of what this the superpower of super intelligence. So I think it's an important thing to always keep bringing up, and I'm glad it has a place in every conversation. I just wish we could reach a point of some kind of objective conversation about it.
So I see Brogan here. Brogan, we haven't met, but I always read your posts on the WhatsApp group.
I was going to say, Brogan, I think you often have some interesting POVs on this. I don't know if I genuinely know nothing, but I've heard you jump in on this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say something very briefly on the nuclear energy aspect. Is there's been a lot of whinging, I think, about the water. It's like, it's not like the law of conservation of matter still exists. Water's not going anywhere. But I think that nuclear energy is something that we're gonna have to get more of, right, in order to power just stuff, whether you're talking EV vehicles or whatever. But I actually want to take a moment here because I think Fred and Min, but especially Fred, you guys are far too modest about yourself and your stuff. And I just want to say, to take a moment from outside, I guess I'm inside the room, but I'm not in the, like, I don't work at Machine Cinema, right? Of just saying, just how awesome of a job that you guys have done, just collecting people and building a real community. I know so many people, because whether you have, because I'm a Christian, I've worked in churches and stuff like that, who always talk about, we want to build community, we want to do this, we want to get people together, and we want to build this awesome thing. But they don't ever actually do it, right? They don't facilitate it. They kind of just say, hey, come to this spot and do this, and maybe something will happen, and you're hoping. But you guys really actually do the really hard work of reaching out to people, setting up events, going to locations, teaching people. My gosh, man, the amount of teaching that you guys give that is just free training, right? Nobody ever talks about that. And that sort of, I guess you could call it like gratitude or magnanimousness is so infectious. And I see it where like there's so many times where people in machine cinema, oh, you have an issue, oh, this is how you do it, oh, I didn't know how to do it, oh, cool. And you're just sharing this information like you should, right? Instead of us all becoming very like, oh, I used to be in the indie film space, and it was like, oh, we can't do this unless we get this person because they have the gear and it's not possible and they don't really want to show and it's like compared to that, machine cinema and what you guys have built is incredible, right? And that is an amazing thing, a great thing, a good thing. We should continue to hone that and keep building it. I know if we push any harder, though, we might all die because it's just, there's no time left. There's no time. And like, that's the thing of like realization of like, we go to all these events, we do all this stuff. I'm flying into LA like once a week type thing or once a month. And it's like, at a certain point, you're just like, man, I'm tapped out. Like, I literally can't like, do anymore. And that's a good thing, because you want to be utilizing your time efficiently. But I think that that's a fantastic thing. Much praise, much success, and I know I promise I'm still working on Beautiful Monster. I'm gonna post it probably this week
Oh
or maybe
no.
next week.
We
And then
have to turn
everyone
that
gets
on,
to
people.
see,
Well,
unless you say
oh no,
otherwise.
it's a work of art. I'll let the internet
But
decide.
yeah.
That's super nice of you,
Well,
dude. And you've also been such a lot of people just so active in the WhatsApp group and making it a place that people feel like there's a conversation to jump into. And you did it. And I don't know. I feel very deeply that like when I observe. Again, all I can really speak to with confidence is what's happening in LA, although I can remember what was happening in New York because I lived there for a long time. But this sort of pullback that clearly has no end in sight, like this Netflix Warner Brothers awesomeness means it's yet another 12 to 18 months of deal making. While I think David Zaslav, I think I read, is literally going to make $560 million on an exit there. It's incredible. And just wonder out loud who are really the good guys in all this. But it just means that there's something changing in this Detroit town, I mean Los Angeles town, that there's something that used to be made here that was part of what attracted people to move here and participate here, and communities got built around it. And I don't even think it was that great. I think it was quite nepotistic, and there's probably a lot of criticisms of whether it represented everybody. And I think that's general cultural evolution of how things over time get tested by what culture wants from them. But the main thing that I know is changing in the wrong direction is a sense of mentorship and apprenticeship and people growing in an organic, not everybody gets to go to film school, but when you're in a town where everybody's working on set and the PA gets to learn from the person next to them, or the systems of working as somebody's assistant and then learning from them, to have enough frothy activity that everybody's showing up to sort of each other's film screenings and being inspired and jumping on, just that natural thing that people grow, and anybody can take that little idea and turn it into something that is absolutely under fire at a macro level of what people want to call making movies or making TV shows. And I do feel like what you just said, Brogan, is what I appreciate anybody noticing, is because that's what I think we're trying to foster by creating space, is like, let people learn together, let people discover new types of creative teams to collaborate, lets people figure out what types of movies get made. That's what I think is getting stressed by all this like risk aversion and sort of scary kind of everybody wants to make a comic book movie because it's the only thing that works, and all these things that I don't even begrudge all the people involved except for David Zaslav, who makes so much money off of it. But and people like him, that I think that they're not sitting around wondering how do they sort of build around them, that they're capitalists in a pure sense, and good for them. I don't know, I guess they're in the right country for it. But I just mean on a community level, I do think that is an opportunity. And I think hearing what you said, Brogan, it makes me think if somebody's into it.
Yeah, thank you, Brogan. That was really, really, it just shows how passionate everyone is about AI and how much, machine cinema is like changing the conversation on it.
I do think I have to hop onto that with call that I mentioned before, by the way, guys. There's a few people waiting for me. I think I have to go. But this has been an awesome conversation with you guys. I'm sorry to be suddenly so abrupt.
It's okay. Thanks, Fred. I think everyone knows how to get in touch with you. You said that a few minutes ago. You guys are on LinkedIn, X. Obviously, we're all here on X, and if you're lucky enough to get a spot in the WhatsApp group. So thank you so
But
much.
the LA group's got lots of space. It's the base camp one that gets tricky.
Okay.
Thank you all. I'm sorry to be so abrupt, but I love getting
No
to
worries.
hear what people think and to share what we think,
Thank you for joining. We really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Fred. And then for everybody else, we'll be back in 2 weeks after the holiday. We usually talk about AI, space, technology. Sarah and I like to talk movies. So if you'd like to be a guest, please reach out to one of us. Love to see you back on another X Space.